Street Zoning Board of Appeals public meeting for Monday, April 25th, 2016. We have a few procedures that we follow once we get to the public hearings portion of the meeting. I will read the appeal into the minutes. Once I've done that, the applicant could then come to the table, tell us what they want, why they want it. If you're here for a variance, it is incumbent upon you to give us a hardship for that variance. If you're here for a special permit, you need to let us know why it is less detrimental than the existing situation. Some of us may or may not have some questions. Once we are done up here, I'll open it up to the floor if anyone else has any questions about a particular appeal. Before we get to the public hearings, we have a few house cleaning items, no minutes. And the only other issue is we have two bills that need approval, one for $216 to the Telegram and Gazette for the March 28th, 2016 legal notices, and the second $646 to Conley Associates for additional traffic peer review services.
Move to approve payment.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Our first 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Marja Guidez, 219 Greenwood Street, Worcester, Mass., for two special permits to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 4-B to operate an auto sales and auto repair business in a limited business district upon property located at 56 Hartford Turnpike. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 57, Plot 103. Is the applicant here? Moving right along. Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, 240 Maple Ave, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 4-B to allow the existing nonconforming parking spaces to remain nonconforming under the new use, and to amend the variance decision granted January 25th of 16 by removing Condition 2 related to ownership in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 206 South Quinsigamon Avenue. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 45, Plot 64. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Richard Ricker, and my bond is CEO of Shrewsbury. Constantly from Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services is with me, Mr. President of the Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services Inc. And as you will recall, we were in front of you for hearing relative to their relocation down to Avenue, the subject site that we're talking about tonight. In your decision, it was the condition number 2. You conditioned that permit on the continued ownership of the land and structures by the Knights. Respectfully, I would ask that you, and the reason why we're here, particularly for that purpose, is to ask you to remove that condition. As much as that it frankly doesn't comport with the requirements of Chapter 48, Section 10, which frankly prohibits that type of good condition, but also in light of the common sense reason, which is that it would be very difficult for them to put the kind of investment into this property that they're going to need to put into it, thinking that if the Knights were to
Sunsets.
sell, that they would have a problem and they might find themselves without a permit after putting that investment into it. As we all know, organizations like these have financial difficulties. They all have financial issues, and for those reasons, some of the organizations which own property decide to change that structure. And I wouldn't want to see Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services put that kind of money they need to put into this property, only to find out that they lose their client. If Knights later on did choose to either change to another organization, merge with someone else, or sell the property. So that's the reason for that particular to change that particular variance. The other reason why we're here is the special permit will be to alter the previous non-conforming nature of the property. Originally, we didn't feel, and I didn't suggest to you that we needed a special permit because we were reducing the parking requirements on with this particular use from an assembly use to obviously for one floor of the building. But in further discussions with the zoning and the building department, it was determined that we should ask you for a special permit for the alteration of the prior non-conforming and existing use that is there to reduce the parking in accordance with the office parking. We're going to be using less parking, and for that reason, we require a special permit. That's basically it.
But you're not changing the number of spaces?
No.
Okay.
No, we're not changing the parking lot at all.
Okay.
It's really just the change of the use of the parking lot,
Okay.
which is a lesser use than what's
Right.
there.
Okay. And on the first one, it's basically house cleaning in some ways.
Absolutely.
If we can't do that, then it wouldn't have.
Right, and I'm trying to be nice with and not tell you they can't do
Yeah.
that. But
You're the lawyer. I'll take your word on that piece.
Well, it was pointed out to me, and then when you read the statute, 48 section 10, the language specifically does say that that is, you can't condition the permit on continued ownership of the structure. So
Okay.
that's basically it.
Anyone have any?
Tom, you didn't get punished enough on the school committee?
No, we're anxious to make the move with it. We're running out of space down there on Maple Avenue with services. The need for our services is booming with it, and the Knights have that floor available with it, so I think it's a good marriage.
It's good and it's bad. I mean, when you're busy, you're helping our less advantaged. And if you didn't have to do that, we'd probably all be happier.
It's a sign of the times,
Yes.
unfortunately.
I'm afraid so.
And I think, it would be clear that the Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services has met an increasing need in the town of Shrewsbury, and it is not going away in the near future that we can see.
Well, I have to confess that I was against it before I was for it.
But that was a while ago.
It was a long time ago.
Anyone else up here?
No.
No, you're all good. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? There being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement, and you will be notified of our decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Imran Khusro, 182 Jenkins Road, Andover, Mass., for 3 variances to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 2, to create 2 single-family lots, each having no frontage, and to create a common driveway exceeding 300 feet as allowed by Section 7-L2 in a Residence A district upon property located at 115R Colonial Drive. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 2, Plot 3.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, for the record, my name is Richard Ricker. I'm an attorney representing Mr. Khusro, petitioner who is in the audience with us today. Together with me is Andrew Liston from Andrew Liston Associates, the engineer who has been working on this particular proposal. I do have some questions if I could pass them up.
I want to thank you for more paper.
I know. I know I gave you some. right is Mr. Kuchar, the petitioner. This, as the advertisement stated, is a request for 2 house lots on property that's at the end of Romeo Drive. And if you can, the house lots would be accessed by way of a common drive, which would come off of the end of Colonial Drive. And the reason for this request is this is about 8 acres of land, 8+ acres of land overall. We're looking to make it into 2 house lots, basically. They don't have frontage because Route 290, when it ran through back in the 60s, 1967, I believe, took the frontage away. At that time, the Commonwealth of Mass, in light of the frontage that was being taken away, formed and ordered an easement, which is part of the taking, and that's the first document that you see in the package that I just handed out. And I've highlighted the section of that. You'll note that the easements are taken under the provisions of that chapter on behalf of the owners of land whose rights of access thereto and egress therefrom would otherwise become inoperative due to the limited access provisions of the state highway, that being Route 290. And it goes further on to say that said easements consist of the right to enter upon said land at any time, to construct thereon, and to maintain and use a roadway and necessary utilities. So I would suggest to you respectfully that what happened here is rather unique and incidental to this particular land, because you had land that basically could have been 6 or 8 lots of land at the time, and it was reduced to no price. The town of Mass, in taking the land for the highway, basically gives the landowner the easement in order to make up for that loss of frontage, and this is the language that they used at the time. Now, at that time, it may have been looked at differently than it would be today, obviously. I would respectfully suggest to you that it certainly has inferences to it that would say that you use that easement in order to access and construct on these particular lots. So therefore, I would suggest to you that the township that we're talking about is caused by the taking of for the land which drove the highway through the property, basically. It is incidental clearly to this land. Any other land in Shrewsbury that looked along 290 in Shrewsbury, any other land either had access to other roadways or was conservation land. So this is incidental to this particular land in Shrewsbury. It would be, I would suggest to you respectfully, no derogation to the intent of the bylaw, because Mr. Crusoe is looking to build 2 houses. One for himself and one for his son's family and his son. And he's here to tell you that he would live there, and his son intends to live there as well. His son does have a son who he would like to put into a private school in Shrewsbury. The other point that I would mention is that I would suggest there's no harm to the neighborhood or to the general public. This is a residential use. Doesn't derogate from the bylaw. This is a residential use. You're talking about 2 houses on essentially 4+ acre lots apiece. There's no overburdening of the parcels of land whatsoever. And the houses would be in keeping with the nature of the houses in the neighborhood. Now, as I suggested to you earlier, Mr. Liston is here, and I'd ask him at this stage to go through, I think, at least 3 different scenarios for you as to what this land could be developed as, although it has not been to date. And then I will
that's where we start. Back in 2005, there was a proposal submitted to the town for a subdivision of 8 lots. Colonial Drive is down towards the bottom of towards the floor, but comes up, and it was a proposed roadway. Came around the side of the hill, and there would be 8 lots. The economy of construction, the economy in general in the United States, we're all in tough shape at the time. That stopped. In the current climate, with the current cost of housing, if you will, there would have been money to do the work necessary. That was stopped at the time. And then we looked at how would it be reasonable to develop the land and under the common driveway bylaws of the town, possibly, again, the same entrance from Colonial Drive, 3 houses, possibly. That would be a maximum on the common driveway bylaw. And
But you would still need a variance on that one?
we
For
would
the
be
length?
here for the same reason
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
this
Okay.
as the one which has been submitted,
On the length of the common
Yeah.
driveway.
Yeah.
which is this one. And so this shows you the current paved end of Colonial Drive. This is the right-of-way from here to here that the Commonwealth took, and for which there was no compensation given other than the right-of-way and the logical inference or implication of the text that Richard read, that it was for accessing this land because the Commonwealth realized that down here on Reservoir and into North Row a bit, that frontage of almost 6 lots was taken away from this land, leaving it with no frontage. So this proposal has the 2 lots that Richard mentioned, a common driveway, 2 homes, and the proposal is that this would be no public involvement in anything except the sewer connection for 1 house. The commissioners will not give 2 houses of connection in this case. So 1 septic system on this lot. There would be public water brought in this way. And this would all be private maintenance on the driveway, and there will be a drainage system proposed to eventually go before the planning board, and it would deal with detention in the normal way that we do that. There are hitch outs so that you can pass a car if you need to, although the driveway is wide enough for 2 vehicles. And we originally started with, can we make an 8-lot subdivision work in this area? It's very expensive, not likely to be easily done. The 3 lots was reasonable. It seemed to fit the top of the hill, which this is, sort of the top of the hill. We slide the houses back and put another one in this area on that 3-lot plan that you see. But then we got back to Mr. Kushro and his son and 2 houses, and that being all, we've settled on the 2-lot option.
Okay.
And you could actually, I think, Andrew, you could actually run a subdivision road into just the beginning of the land to split it up into the 2 lots as well, in which case we'd be looking for a waiver from the planning board under that scenario. But
So that would be
Mr.
putting a
Kushro-
cul-de-sac or something
Right.
here.
Right, and that would give you enough frontage there on that cul-de-sac. But
But that would then make that a town road.
And Mr. Kushro, frankly, he lives on a farm now. He'd like to move to Shrewsbury. He likes to have enough land around him, so this would give 2 large lots. He lives on a farm now with 40-plus acres, so he'd be moving from there to Shrewsbury. He's retired now, so
Okay.
that's the idea.
Questions?
What's the common length of the common driveway? 300 feet?
300 feet is the
300
max.
feet.
Yeah.
And what is this one going to be?
I have to look at the different plans. It's long.
Definitely longer than that.
About 1,600 feet.
1,600 feet.
Anyone?
That includes that easement granted by the Commonwealth.
Right.
Yep.
Anyone? Mel?
Well, the last time the planning board looked at this piece of land, there was going to be a drive or a road, and I think you did it, Andy, from Colonial Drive to Boylston, which would have been one of the most expensive roads in town. Because as I remember, the road had to go up 40 feet and a wall.
I think, Mr. Gordon, that we were looking, the client asked us to look at what I would determine to be an impossible situation in a practical sense. And it was more than 40 feet of grade change, and it was potentially quite a high wall to go all the way through to Boylston. There is a Boylston Road way down the hill, but it's not really a practical or appropriate place to.
And that would have given you 8 or 10 lots, if I'm correct.
It might have given more. The version that I showed that was dead end was
Yeah.
eight lots, so it would have probably doubled that, although not all intrusive.
Yeah. Well, this would have gone out to Davidians about somewhere in that area.
Originally it would have,
Yeah.
but I don't, not in the current
No.
assemblage of parcels.
So the Commonwealth made this a very difficult endeavor.
The Commonwealth took away 792 feet of frontage
Yes.
and left us with 0 feet of frontage.
And an easement.
I guess my other question is, isn't this kind of self-created hardship?
Not by the proponent,
Well,
by the Commonwealth.
I would say by this proponent too, because this is he purchased it without frontage, knowing that he would have to come to the board to get a variance.
Okay.
So to me, in some ways, that's a self-created hardship. If
Okay.
the original owner was here, I would maybe have a different,
This is one of these times you and I are going to disagree.
probably.
Okay. I think the land was taken without compensation.
Right.
I mean, you want to call an easement compensation, that's all right, but I'm not that magnanimous.
Do we know that? Do we know it was taken without compensation?
There was compensation granted, but not for the frontage, specifically.
You
not
have
for
that
frontage.
deed.
It's right here.
The frontage was compensated for by this language and an easement.
The intent of the Commonwealth in taking the easement was to replace the loss of frontage and to provide access, and there were words to that effect that Richard was reading.
Okay.
Well, if I had a land with 700 or 800 feet of frontage, and the state took all my frontage away, I'd want to be compensated from going from 700, 800 to none, because now my land is essentially landlocked, and by taking an easement and giving it to the property owner, it ceases to be landlocked. But I would think that compensation would have been based on the market value of frontage land.
I think that the language that you see in the easement document itself would bear out the fact that the Commonwealth intended for people to determine that they had access to their property for, among other things, and it's noted in the document itself, construction. So I think it's very easy for an individual not being necessarily in tune with the niceties of the law to think that they have been compensated with this easement for frontage to at least some degree. Whether someone would sue or not is a very personal decision, and that's what you have to do if you want to go forward after a taking like this. And as you know, these types of takings along in the Commonwealth were fairly common, and the Commonwealth was pretty quick to grant these easements throughout. And as I say, I think that in another day, back in 1967, these easements may have been viewed in a different light than they are today, frankly. However, to address that and to address your comment, Mr. Rosen, these things run with the land.
Yeah.
And it's clear that they run with the land. The easement stayed with the land, and the intent stayed with the land. So to that extent, it's not self-made or self-created. It is an easement, and it is a problem that stayed with the land throughout the time from 1967 to today.
Okay. You have anything?
No, no.
I don't feel that in any way this derogates from the intent of our bylaw. Okay, I think the Commonwealth, they're elected for 4 years, and they did what they thought was best for them
Right.
back then. Now it's up to us. Do we want to clean up the mess, or do we want to keep the mess? I, for one, would like to see 2 $1 million houses, because I don't think they would. I don't think they'll affect our schools. I don't think they will compound any of the problems we have. You're having a well for one house, or no? You're having sewerage for one house
Septic for one house.
Septic
and
for one, sewage
other
for another.
water for both houses.
But, you know,
We have
Yeah.
a
But-
contracted easement to the utility.
But again, I would argue also that even using your language of giving access, where it says, said easement consists of the right to enter upon said land at any time to construct thereon and to maintain and use a roadway and necessary utilities. But then I would argue one lot on something like that. If that was, I can't really go back to what the intent was 40 years ago. But then you're coming to me and you're coming to the board asking for a common driveway 5 times the length of what the bylaw allows.
The width of this common driveway.
It is fairly standard in the majority of it, but if you look on the submitted plans, you'll see that it's supposed to be,
New glasses time. Is it 22 feet or 18 feet?
18 feet.
Okay.
there are also 2 swing outs in case there's any,
Someone coming down the road, the drive?
Yes.
the access easement's 40 feet, but the driving service is, as Richard said.
Okay. And he's still going to have to build a wall if this
Well,
is
not all of the way, but in a couple places.
Okay.
If it was a full-width subdivision road, there would be walls on both sides, all the way from
Oh, yeah.
the present end of Colonial down to the bend and around the corner.
Well, as you see, we have a difference of opinion, and we'll have to wait and see what occurs.
Does anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? State your name for the record, sir.
Michael McAtarian, I live at 28 Bridle Path, obviously in Shrewsbury. The fact that in the past you were thinking about 10 house lots and thought about only 8, and now we're only thinking about 2 is irrelevant. It's not like you're asking for a whole lot less than maybe you could be asking for. I think that's irrelevant with regard to whether or not it's a feasible argument. I think if anybody were to physically see that property from any angle, no one other than the property owner would even consider building a house, let alone 2 houses there. It's absolutely absurd to put 2 houses with no frontage. And I believe a 1,600-foot driveway is called the road. I don't know who set it up there. How wide is the road? Driveway going to be? It's a road. Let's be honest about it. The fact that there's no frontage, I don't think the town of Shrewsbury is so hard up that they need to put 2 houses, regardless of being $1 million or not $1 million home. To try to squeeze 2 houses in an area where there's no road frontage does not make any sense. I think the argument or the comment made by the chairman with regard to this being a self-imposed hardship is very legitimate. If you purchase the property with no frontage, purchase the property with no frontage. If he was the original owner, I think it might be a little bit of a different story. But just looking at it from a common sense standpoint, looking at that property, where these houses would be located, the homes that are already in the area, the fact that one would be on a septic system, it just
Thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard on this? Okay, anybody else up here?
I have a question, Mr. Ricker. You suggested that the tax taking was the hardship.
The taking of the land was the hardship.
But not tax taking, it was a Commonwealth taking.
Right, it was a Commonwealth taking.
Yeah, excuse me, I misspoke. I didn't mean to say
Basically,
tax,
highway.
but the taking is the hardship. I don't follow how that is. I understand that the loss of frontage is a hardship to the owner, but I don't see anywhere where we can put a taking into being defined as the hardship under which you would seek relief.
Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Shetsky, the frontage for this parcel, which was a large parcel at one time, was sliced through the middle by the highway. So the frontage that served this property is down on the other side of the highway, and it was taken fully away. That's a pretty hardship situation as I look at it.
And it is topographical because you have a highway running through it.
I'm not sure that I agree with that.
Anybody else? Fred? State your name for the record, sir.
Yes. I'm at 22 Bridle Path. It seems to me that in order to build this driveway, which is really a road,
Excuse me, who are you?
State your name for the record.
does it matter?
Yes, it
Yes.
does.
Okay, MASSAD, Bob.
Thank you.
That's a heavily wooded area. There's going to be an awful lot of tree destruction, and that'll lead to whatever the noise pollution is and fume pollution is, and then erosion of the hill. An awful lot of tree destruction will take place. You're going to have 1,600 feet, more than 5 football fields of driveway. That's a tremendous amount of environmental destruction, not to mention nuisance to all of the abutters. For the previous 3 reasons I mentioned, for just a driveway. It's just a driveway, and you're going to cut down tons of trees for a driveway. I can't even begin to understand how that's rational. And I would like to concur with what Mr. Rosen said. If the gentleman purchased the property knowing it was landlocked, then he purchased property that's landlocked, and then he should find a different way to do whatever he can with that property. I think that's silly to come ask the town or the abutters to pay for his mistake. I also heard him mention, but he wants to move to Shrewsbury. In case anybody's wondering, there are at least 11 houses in our neighborhood on the market for sale. So why would you destroy the neighborhood, destroy the hillside, knock the trees down? There's 11 houses sitting there, many of them over $1 million in that neighborhood. So I don't understand this at all. My last point is just a question. I don't know what the 3 variances are. I'm assuming one of them is the silly driveway. What are the other 2 variances?
It'd be fronted 2 lots that don't have frontage, so each one is a variance.
Oh, okay.
Anybody
That
else?
was it.
Thank you. Yes, sir. State your name for the record.
Eli Scott, 25 Bridle Path. That whole land's all wooded, and we already have a problem with the highway noise. So cutting all those trees, there'd be more highway noise, like Mr. Massa said. And if we all had a chance to buy that land at one point, me, Michael, my neighbors, we could have, any one of us could have bought it and did whatever we want to do with it, and including Puglia Development, who developed the whole area. He could have attached it to his property and put a road in. He's putting roads that 3 times bigger than that road. But there's no life in that land. And I disagree with anything going there. I can even raise a chicken on my property. He's going to come put a farm there now? Absolutely not.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard? Anybody up here? Anyone else?
No, I'm full.
Okay. There being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Lauren Mangiano, 14 Jewett Terrace, Worcester, Mass., for a use variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 6, Table 1 to operate a dance studio as a place of assembly upon property located at 910 Boston Turnpike in the Limited Industrial District. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 58, Plot 11. Welcome, and state your name for the record, please.
I'm the owner of the Lee's Having in Shrewsbury. We've been open for 8 years in the town of Shrewsbury, and we moved to 910 Boston Turnpike about 5 years ago. And business has been going really well. Right now we serve about 300 families in Shrewsbury and the surrounding towns. A couple of years ago, we began to look to upgrade to a different location, and we found after a long search, we ended up at 697 Hartford Turnpike, and we were supposed to be into our new location in September, and then in March, and then as of May 1st, but construction has been going a little bit slower than anticipated. And so we're just looking for a variance temporarily so that we can finish out the studio year, which goes from September to June at our current location before we move to Hartford Turnpike.
We can impose a time limit?
Yeah, the last use variance had an 18-month time limit on it.
Okay.
Which is why we're here.
Yeah.
I think the use variance expired, correct? Your last one?
Correct.
Okay. And when will your other space be ready?
It's supposed to be ready officially on June 1st.
And your current year runs till June 30.
I'm sorry,
When do you say your year runs till?
June 1st.
That's when, okay.
Yeah, no, our lease is up where we currently are on June 1st, and then we have recital, which kind of bookends the year, and that's on June 6th.
Okay.
So we would like to be into the new place that last week so that we can kind of close and reopen for the summer season together.
So you were going to open for the summer season at the new location? Okay.
What are you looking for, a week's time?
It's just a couple of weeks. But
Yeah. 2 months?
Yeah.
Anyone have any questions?
No,
You all good?
No problem.
Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? There being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you. You the same. Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Gregory Pratt, 11 George Street, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 4-B to construct a second-floor addition on an existing single-family dwelling in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 11 George Street. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 58, Plot 11. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Gregory Pratt, 11 George Street. Can I introduce you?
Yes, sir.
Understand, once you give it to us,
It's yours.
it's
It's
ours.
ours.
I want you to keep it.
Thank you.
Good evening. So, my wife and I purchased a single-family one-story home in 2004 on George Street. Since then, we had 2 children. Two-bedroom home is getting small for our needs, and we would like to put a second story on. We're very close in the neighborhood. My sister happens to live next door, so we're going to second story up together. So we really prefer to not leave the neighborhood if we can.
Right-hand side or left-hand side?
Going down George Street on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Let me just ask a quick question before you go further. So you're just taking the existing house that you're in, going straight up, not bumping out anywhere?
If you look on this page,
Yep.
the house is a funny shape, as you can see.
Yep.
And we would like to, in the back corner on the left where you can see a dotted line, the highlighted area is what we would like to go up. So with that little dotted line.
Right, but you're going straight up. You're not bumping out. You're not putting in bay windows or anything else that's going to encroach upon the footprint.
Just right here. It's not going wider
Okay.
than that's already. It's just going just a little bit over square.
To move things along, does anyone have any
No
issues?
question,
Okay, most of us on the board think you should be able to do that by right, so if no one has any questions.
I'm in favor of it being by right.
Anyone in attendance wish to be heard? There being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you.
For your time.
Sure. Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Pradeep Nazari, 27 Appaloosa Drive, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 2, to construct a deck 10 feet from the side property line in the Rural B District upon property located at 27 Appaloosa Drive. The subject premises on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 43, Plot 11-15. State your name for the record, please.
My name is Pradeep Nasri. This is my wife, Stephanie Nasri. Could I just bring up some pictures?
Sure, as long as we keep them.
Yep. I don't have any copies,
Yep.
so I just brought two. Good evening. We're petitioning the board this evening to build into the 30-foot setback that is, I guess, part of the zoning area where we live in Shrewsbury. What we would like to do is extend our deck about another 10 feet from where it currently is situated right now. We have two very young children who are 3 and 5 who play in the backyard most of the time. Currently, to access the backyard, they have to go around outside a fence that we've created to kind of help them maintain their space inside and then work their way to the backyard. What we're proposing to do is extend the deck out so that we can have it very easily accessible for them to go from the inside of the house outside and vice versa, and that we can monitor them closely. What we'd like to do is build about 10 to 12 feet into the variance, so that would make 18 feet from the property line to the exact edge of the deck, so that we can work around a retaining wall that we have there that's not allowing us to build it right down onto the ground. As you can see in these pictures, there are stakes that show to the exact intent where the deck edge would be, and the staircase would come down there. From what we understand, our house is also on a corner lot, so I guess we have 2 side yards and not a backyard, which would, I guess, affect which setback that we'd be building into.
Actually benefits you to, it's a side yard, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the expansion really wouldn't affect any of the other properties around us, and we've talked to most of our neighbors who have said there's no problem with the extension onto the deck itself.
Okay. Any questions?
I still remember when a deck was not looked at so...
As a structure, yeah.
As a structure. I have no problem with what they want to do. I might want to... How old are your kids?
3 and 5.
I might want to suggest a stairway down into the backyard.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The deck would extend and the stairway would link down to the lower level where they
Okay.
It's just better slope for them to go up there.
Don't be too good to them. They'll want to stay.
Is there any way of doing it without encroaching into the,
No, we've tried. We had the builder come out and take a look, and we'd have to build into the setback.
how about if you just went off the side of the deck into where the patio area is?
So it wouldn't really, we would still be building into it, because the stairs would have to come down and around, and then you'd have to come around the patio. We wouldn't want the stairs to go right down over that retaining wall down to the patio itself.
That's in the land. Okay.
So how large of a deck is it that you're proposing?
It's about an 8-foot extension from where the deck is, and then about 20 feet long. So we're just asking for about 12 feet into the setback.
Okay. Do you have anything? Fred?
No, so you would say the topography of the lot is really a hardship.
The retaining wall, yeah. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? State your name for the record, sir.
Kanishka Bhattacharya and Madhumita Bhattacharya. We are on the adjoining lot, and I have no problems with the deck, but the fence mistakenly got put on our land.
That has nothing to do with my board. That's something the two of you have to work out. That's. Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay. There will be no further questions or comments. We'll take it up. And you'll be notified of our decision. Upon advisement, notified of our decision. Thank you. Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Kevin Kyler, 160 Southbridge Street, Auburn, Mass., for a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 2, to construct a sunroom 34.3 feet from the rear property line in the Residence A District upon property located at 12 Jamie Lane. The subject premises on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 12, Plot 7-9. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Kevin Keeler. I'm the chief designer for Brady Built Sunrooms. And I was hired by Scott and Claudia Gang to put a 16 by 40 foot sunroom / pool enclosure on the back side of the house. In designing the room, we ran into a couple of different challenges. First of all, the unusual shape of the lot, and the fact that what would be normally considered the rear lot line is considered the side lot line, and what would normally be considered the side lot line is the rear lot line. So the other issue we face is the house is pushed far to the left-hand side of the lot, and the garage is on the side that has the most land, where the living space of the house is the side that is closest to the side yard setback. So we tried to work a couple of different ways of doing this to put it on there with the least encroachment into the zoning variance. We approached the building inspector with this proposal, and at the time the room was designed at 16 and 18 feet, and his suggestion was to reduce the size down to 14 to 16 feet to make it even less encroachment into the setback, which we did. Because of the location of the pool in the room, and because of the correlation of the room being a long and skinny room, making it any shallower than that is going to kind of render the design useless. What we did, we also tried to design the room to fit onto the house, because there are several parts of the back of the house that jut out, and one of those juts out significantly from the house, which is 4 feet, and we wanted to line the beams up with that section of the house, and I think you guys have some pictures, right?
Yeah.
That's the picture that shows the whole back of the house, and there's a drawing in there that shows the room as it's going to sit on the back of the house from above, and you can see that the 5th beam in and the 9th beam in line up with the edges of where that house juts out. So in order to move it, if we had to, we would have to slide it down one whole section, which would be 3 feet. And even if we did that, the two other challenges we face are the fact that even if you move it down 3 feet, you're still going to need a variance, because you're still going to be into the setback by 2 feet. And in the other pictures, you see they have 3 very large air conditioning units that are located right at the edge of where the room is going to be right now. And those would all have to be completely relocated. So we feel that because it's on the back side of the house, and because it won't be able to be seen from the street, and that we tried as best we could to fit it on there properly, we feel that we can do this without degrading from the spirit and intent of the bylaw, and because it's such an unusual shaped lot, we feel that that's a pretty significant hardship. So we're respectively requesting a relief of 5.4 feet from the 40-foot required rear yard setback.
Okay. Anything?
So it's only that one quantity you're looking for relief
That
on?
one little piece, one of the rows fits into it, yeah. That's the best I can do.
Okay. You have anything? Good. You good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Russ Young, 21 Morningside Drive. My property is due west of their property behind them, so I probably have the best view of their enclosure. The problem with their house, and I have no problem with the sunroom enclosure, is the house is set back quite a ways into the lot.
Right.
And it's about 20 feet from my property line to the corner of their house. And this is a rather large structure, and I'm up at a higher elevation that we would be looking out our window at. I'm all for sunrooms. We have a sunroom which you can see from your angle too, but it would be really right on top of us. It would be my feeling. you know, right now we're looking at a good-sized motorhome, you know, in the backyard all season.
You understand if they were to cut it 5 feet on the corner, they could still, they could basically just, instead of squaring it off, put an angle on it, and it would be compliant, they wouldn't need us.
See, I don't have access, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm all for the sunroom, I really, as long as, you know, I
You wanna-
don't know if the board has any power to, you know, ask for any kind of privacy hedging or anything like that.
Actually, we do, yeah.
I mean, I think that's basically what I would request. I have no problem with the sunroom, I think it's a great idea. As long as there was some type of privacy
Screening?
screen.
Yep.
Just for the neighbors, you know, because it looks like a rather large. And it would be better for them too. We're up higher looking down on them, I think it would be better.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir, state your name for the record.
Tom Kessman, 19 Morningside, right next to Mr. Young or Dr. Young. So I would share the same concerns.
Yep.
We just want to make sure there's a large privacy barrier, even from my home where I'm at. I'm up at a higher elevation. You can't see down that way. Again, right now we're looking at a plow truck and a motorhome and a Bobcat and all kinds of apparatus back there. So we really want to make sure that if this is constructed, that there is a substantial evergreen type barrier so that it's defended throughout the entire year, so we don't have to look at something that's encroaching
Yep.
very close.
And again, you do understand they could square it off and not need
I understand.
anything from us.
I
Yep.
understand.
Okay,
Yep, so I understand that
Yep.
they could square it off, but because I think it's our ability to discuss what things
Mhm.
may be optional if we did not approve that variance, or
Yep.
your team did not approve that variance. So we would like some type of barrier, substantial barrier to protect the visual appearance, especially with such a large motorhome that's back there, Bobcats, other equipment that is not appealing to the eye.
yeah, I would imagine that is temporary while you're in construction, or?
Well, let me address three things.
Yeah.
First of all, it's temporarily there because they were in the process of taking the deck down to
Right.
rebuild when they decided
Yeah.
to do this. So as soon as this is done, it won't be there
Right.
any longer. Second of all, they are planning on doing some extensive landscaping in the backyard after the room goes in place, and some evergreens and things like that would not be
Right.
an issue.
Okay.
And the motorhome, is that temporary?
Again, that has nothing to do with us. So I don't even want to address that. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? There being no further comments or questions, we will take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you. Next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal, oh no, that was you. To hear the appeal of Healthcare Enterprises LLC by Attorney Marshall Gould, 370 Main Street, Suite 1050, Worcester, Mass, for a variance of the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 2, to construct a new medical building 77 feet from the rear yard setback when 100 feet is required when abutting a residential district upon property located at 151 to 155 Main Street in the limited commercial district. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 19, Plot 144.
We've just given business card for everybody to pass around, but I'll do the introductions. I'm Marshall Gould. I'm the attorney for the applicant in this project. And what they are looking to do is to develop the property at 151 to 155 Main Street. And with me tonight, I have Steve McCarthy from Shields Health Group. And we also have Patrick Fury. Where's Patrick? Oh, here he is. Patrick Fury from Thompson Liston. We have Jennifer Conley from Conley and Associates.
But she wasn't here.
She will be dealing in case there are any traffic issues. And we have Matt Clark from Jata Architects, who's in the second row here. So we think we will be able to answer any questions that you have. We are here tonight because we will be asking for a variance. And the variance that we are asking for is setback to the residential zone. The property that we are in was rezoned within the last 5 years through a limited commercial business. As many of you know, it was previously permitted for a hotel that ended up not going in on the site. Subsequent to the time of that permit, it was rezoned and it took the dimensional regulation from what it was was at the time of 25 feet, brought it up to 100 feet. So when this building was designed, in all honesty, they could not meet that 100 feet. Right now, at one point, it's 77 feet from the town-owned land, which is residential. At another point, it's 78 feet from the town-owned land, which is residential. We're going to have Patrick talk to you tonight about the soil conditions, shape, and topography issues that will justify a variance. Before we do that, however, I'd like Steve McCarthy to talk to you about this project and who Shields is and who Healthcare Enterprises is. So if I may, thank you.
Good evening. Steve McCarthy, Shields Healthcare, here representing Healthcare Enterprises, which is a joint venture partnership between Shields Healthcare and UMass Memorial Health. Our purpose is to acquire the land, develop the property for an ambulatory outpatient surgery center. We are, got this team together. We went before the planning board, and we're here before you to discuss this. UMass and Shields have had a long-standing relationship. We're 1999, 15 years as a partner with many healthcare businesses with them. So they've asked us to come forward, develop this site, own, operate the ambulatory surgery center.
Okay. Patrick, would you go up and describe the site and talk about why the variance is needed here with respect to the soil shape and topography, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So the site is about a 4.9 acre site. This is Main Street down here. This is the on-ramp onto I-290 eastbound. We're abutting a residential district right along the property line. It's the limited commercial business. There's a rural B zone, and then there's a rural A zone within which the residential lots are located. We're proposing a 40,000 square foot building here with approximately 200 parking spaces, single entrance and exit here to Main Street on the town road. State right-of-way begins right about here. So from here up to here is a no access frontage. Our frontage is here. The site currently was partially worked for the construction of the hotel site. About 90% of the moving operation has been completed for the site. Along the residential boundary here, the limited work is pretty similar to what was proposed at the time. Along the edge of parking here, there's a retaining wall. So the parking lot is down low. There's a retaining wall going up to the open space property. And additionally, prior to the earth moving operations, the previous developer put in some significant plantings behind each of those four residential homes to screen it. Those plants were put in 2010, so they've had several years to mature. So they would act significantly to reduce the visibility of the proposed development here. On this plan here, I'm showing those four abutting residential properties with some distances to them to give you an idea of the distances involved. I have some copies here for the board. So the nearest home, the nearest property line would be here is 153 feet from the nearest residential property line, and to the nearest residence is 204 feet. So, the ones on this side are a little bit higher, so 240 feet to the nearest residential property line, 255 feet to the residence. So the dimensions that we're talking about, the variance of the distance between this base of the building and the property line here, approximately 77 feet. So dealing with the shape of the property, due to the takings here from 290, it sort of comes out to an arrowhead shape here. This sort of a strange shape to the property here, abutting the residential properties. This shaded line here is the zoning boundary for the overlay district for the Aquifer Protection District. And so to the east of that is District 2, to the west is District 3. So this is in effect the delineation between the highly permeable soil on this side versus the more difficult soil to work on the back. because we are working on a sandy type soil site, creating a lot of impervious area, we have some significant mitigation to do for the stormwater. We're proposing that to be subsurface here under the parking lot, where the soil conditions allow us to do that. If we were to move the building forward, we wouldn't have sufficient area to provide the necessary stormwater mitigation. There's also quite a topographic difference from this point of the site down to the street. There's about a 65-foot grade difference. So we're creating a one-story building with parking and emergency aisles circling it. That all has to be on the same level. So it makes it rather difficult to move the building into the hill or something like that to make that happen. You can see the shaded line around these edges. This is a retaining wall that's proposed. At the highest point, that wall would be 20 feet tall, right at this back corner. And on top of that wall, we're proposing an 8-foot privacy fence. There'll be a chain link fence with privacy slats inserted into it.
Okay.
So that would add to the existing open space buffer and plantings to screen the use from the abutting properties. I'll leave it there. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay. First question, it's a partnership with UMass and Shields. And who's Healthcare Enterprises LLC? Is that the joint venture?
We set up that company specifically for this.
Okay. And since I know that, just for putting it out, UMass is 501c3, but I'm assuming if this entity is not. Right. Okay.
Profit.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Anyone?
No, he explained, my question was with the stormwater and the placement of the building. I think he adequately explained that.
Mr. Gordon?
The area that is in question about the variance, will the houses see anything? To me, it doesn't appear they would.
Patrick, do you or Matt want to address this? Let me give you the simple answer to that without getting too complex and showing you all the drawings.
Well, that's probably
Originally, there
good
was
for
going
me.
to be a hotel there, and they were going, when I say they, the abutters, they're actually not immediate abutters, they're abutters to the town-owned land.
Right.
So the people who lived up in that subdivision were going to see probably the top story and a half and maybe the roof of the hotel building. With this, they are probably not going to see the walls of the building at all. They might see part of the roof, but they are not going to see certainly the first level of the roof. Between the 20-foot retaining wall and the 8-foot wall above that, if they see anything, it's going to be the far end of the roof closest to Main Street. So, in as much as it's already been said, the nearest home is 204 feet to the building, where they will probably be seeing something is at least 275 to 300 feet away from their homes. And they will not be hearing the sounds from there. There will not be the lighting that was going to exist with the hotel. That was going to be a 24/7 operation. That was going to be multiple stories. This is regular business hours. This is going to be weekday, perhaps, times on weekends, but it's going to be much more minimal impact in so many different ways. The town water department is very pleased because our water use is going to be drastically less. The sewer will be drastically less. We have Jennifer here to talk about traffic, but the traffic will be considerably less. So all in all, I think this is a great improvement over what was previously permitted and allowed. And I hope that question answers, or that answers your question. If not, we have more detail if you want it.
No, I'm all set.
Could you explain exactly where the relief is sought and why is it that you need it there? I mean, for instance, could you move the building, make the building smaller?
God bless you.
If I may, right now the plan shows in one spot 77 feet from the town-owned property and in another 78. We've determined after meeting with the architects and site contractors, we're actually going to ask to be allowed to go within 75 feet, because when you actually go in to do the building, it is possible that there may be inch inches or a slight difference in angle may change things. So the variance we're actually going to ask for tonight is to be within 75 feet. If the question is, could the building be made smaller, I think the person to answer is probably Steve as opposed to the engineer.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
Steve, would you mind?
single story and that 40,000 square foot footprint is what we've been shooting for all along. Just the operational efficiencies of that. We can't go two-story, and to get too tight right now, it's just not going to be the efficient model we're looking for.
That's all.
Yeah.
In the, in that section, are there any mechanicals for the building in that corner?
Could I ask Matt from Jacob Architects to answer that question?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Tharp from Jacob Architects. So we do have some mechanical, we have a mechanical penthouse plan for this portion of the building here on the roof. So the first story of the building is roughly 18 to 20 feet is the facade height. And then we have a mechanical penthouse on top of that for a roof-mounted air handling unit and some other associated mechanical equipment like chillers and buffer tanks and that sort of thing. Those will be completely screened, so they won't be visible from either the houses up here in question or from anywhere on Main Street.
And it's from on the furthest point from the residential.
That's right, yeah. They're located over here. The residences are in this area here, so they're as far away from the residential areas as we can get.
Okay.
I think I asked this last time. This is basically a 12-hour day, right?
Yes, 6
And you're closed after that.
Yeah.
And the only lighting would be night and safety lighting.
That's all, yeah.
Okay? And if there's somebody in there at night, it's probably somebody being driven down the road cleaning.
Or maintenance, but no, there's nothing past really 6 p.m.
So is this an additional location or replacing a location?
No, this is all outpatient surgeries as opposed to inpatient in the hospital, so it's going to free up more efficiency with the hospital and the way cases that can be seen over.
Right.
It's allowing the hospital to do more surgeries without expanding their base.
Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? State your name for the record, sir.
My name is Kornath Madhavan, and I am from 11 Dana Road. If I remember right, my property, the back of my property, is probably the most closest to this whole building. So, when you say 70 feet, does that include between my property and this proposed property, there is town.
It's 70 feet from the town land.
Town.
Right, so there's the town land, the 70 feet plus the town land.
Okay. Now, I have several observations. From my upstairs room, I can see very clearly to my east and west. I can even, if it is enough light, I can even identify the types of cars and so on and so forth. So, when they have this building, and I raised the same question with Mr. Andy Sorobian when he wanted to build the hotel, somehow they have to protect my house area. Other than, what he has planted, that is right. But he said there will be another wall, and then there will be the wall of the hotel building. But here I did not see or hear that there will be two walls, so that, if something happens in one wall, no one can climb down to the property area and so on. So that is one of my questions. The other question is, since this is going to be a health facility, I can even see that big tube for all the fumigation in the hospital. I'm a biologist, I know what all things go into there. So, if that thing is going to be here also, how that is going to affect So unless we take care of all those things, I think we will have the people who are living here. And I'm the closest house to this proposal.
Okay, thank you. Answer?
The distance we had already stated to the nearest home was 204 feet.
Right.
And I'm not sure which one he said is his address, so assuming that he is in that nearest home, the way I understood the question was, he said there was going to be a wall and then another wall, and he's correct that the hotel was going to be terraced, but that actually brought their land up closer and closer. This is all going to be at one level, so it's going to be lower. So there's going to be a 20-foot wall, and on top of that wall, there's going to be an 8-foot fence that will block sight. So the total is 28 feet, which I believe is more than what the hotel was offering to begin with. So I think that answers that question.
Right.
The second, in terms of the exhaust from the building, Matt, is that anything you want to respond to?
Yeah, I believe, sir, what you may be referring to is an oxygen farm with the large tube that they tend to be very, very tall.
No, it is where they fumigate all the thrown away materials, this and that. It is actually bad there, but unless you build such a big tube, it's going to be released to the atmosphere.
Yeah, the exhaust, the plans we have now for handling, for mechanical air quality within the building, they're all, the air is brought in and exhausted through an air handling unit. So you wouldn't see this large chimney stack that I think you're concerned about. It would be all contained within one single air handling unit that would be large but screened. So it's not something you would ever see.
The chimney I meant was what is seen at UMass Medical School.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that system is probably quite a bit different than what we would see here, given the size of the facility.
Okay.
So, our facility is much smaller than.
And whenever there is wind flow,
He's talking about the power plant chimney.
What's that?
The power plant chimney. I don't think they have a power plant.
and always the wind comes to our side.
Okay. Anyone else up here? We're all good? Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns? There being no further comments or questions, we'll take it under advisement and you'll be notified of our decision. Thank you. Which brings us to our first 6:30 hearing. Is this? Are they here?
6:45 hearing.
No, 6:30.
First
the
one.
appeal of Marja Guidez. It's already been read into the minutes. It was supposed to be our first hearing.
Used to get here a little late.
Yep.
2 minutes late. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay.
My name is Jairo dos Santos. I will be the store manager for the location. He's Fernando Melius' husband, and he's also the part of the business.
Okay.
We have a location right now on 350 Hardy Street and 90 Arcoxby Street in Worcester. And, we are relocating from Worcester to Shrewsbury. Repair shop and music color.
Want to tell us a little bit about the operation?
Yes, like I was saying, we have those two locations in Worcester, and then this location open space on 56 Hartford Park, and then we was here last month for the permit, and then we're here today for the ZBA for special permit. Even though it always was a dealer, but it's a new ownership. And, we request for 90 cars, license total, with the customers, employees, and for the repair and for the sale.
Mhm.
That's the reason we are here today for that.
Have the selectmen have heard this or they have not?
They have heard this.
Okay.
Yeah, they approved us for
And how many did they approve for?
75.
75? Okay.
Because it was the last license there was 75 cars. That's why they kept the same way.
When was this before the selection?
This was in 22nd of March of this year.
Okay, so they just approved it for 75.
Yes.
Okay.
And they also, as a condition, included the car washing inside.
Right, and you understand about the car washing?
Yes.
That it has to be done inside?
Yes.
And that means you're running into drainage issues?
Yes.
Okay.
The only question I ask is, this location we wash out the car inside, but once a week we just spray water to take the dust out. I don't know if it's okay to you guys, just to spray water to the dust, plain water, nothing else. So,
where is this?
In Worcester.
No. You're talking about outside, though?
Right.
Okay, the condition is that all washing has to be done inside.
Inside, okay.
Yeah.
No problem.
You have anything?
Yeah, is that the facility equipped for indoor washing?
They have a bay, and we have I also give a cup from the plant. They have a bay just for wash your car there behind with everything set up. They always been there.
We have the paper from the city.
Yeah, I give one from Miss Patricia the beginning of the week.
It needs drainage, though, correct?
If there's a car, this has to do with MDC traps, cars going inside of a building. So I believe the building inspector has asked for information in line with that and hasn't received it yet. So.
Okay. Do you understand that? There's certain traps that need to be placed within the building to capture the water. It just doesn't go into the sewer.
Yes.
And the building inspector has asked for some information regarding that has not been provided.
On my knowledge, nobody never asked you was that. Somebody from the ZBA called us and sent a letter about that, and I went to the second floor here. And I bring the paper from the sewer connection.
No, it's not with the sewer connection. That's not what we're talking about. Do you want to explain?
So there was a letter on
the 11th?
April 4th. The building inspector asked, I believe, am I reading the wrong one? No, sorry, it wasn't. No, not on April 11th. I can't find it now.
We never received the
March 7th. Nope, sorry, that's not even it.
We only receive a phone call. We never receive a letter about.
So there was an email sent from, in your packets, that it was from the building inspector to the town manager, and it had to do with, it was dated April 4th. And it says, it's asking questions in regards to specifically the car washing inside the building. It says, in order to comply with Article 4 of the Rules and Regulations for Public Sewers, there has to be a collection system to prevent the car washing water from going into the public sewers.
Right.
Then I believe there was submitted just a tie-in card that they retrieved from the sewer department.
Which is not what we're talking about.
Yes.
So you need a special collection system inside the building. We're not talking about your tie-in to the sewer. There needs to be a certain system. If you don't know what we're talking about.
No, I know
Okay.
the special system, but like I said, we never receive any mail or anything like that.
But that's what you would need before you can operate.
Okay. So it's a kind of tank to collect the water and remove from the location.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
The water, oils from the car.
Right.
I have a question about this, the plan that was included. Is this the parking plan?
Yeah, this one.
And
Here.
how many parking spots are shown on here?
This plan was here since the last time in 2000. That's the old plan. Was about 125 parking space there.
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that the plan that's been included here, if we're to act on this, this will become part of the decision.
Correct.
And if this reflects 100 and something cars, and we might be inclined to only permit what the Board of Selectmen has
Right.
authorized, that this plan would be inappropriate.
You have anything else? Mel? Fred?
No.
Okay. Does anybody in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir, state your name for the record.
My name is Robert Murphy. I live at 35 Bayview Drive. I have a couple of concerns relative to the current use of the property and the proposed use. As you are aware, this property is located within the Edgemere Village Overlay District. And if you take a look at the intent of when that district was created, the idea was that you would beautify the area by landscaping, follow certain architectural requirements, create basically what they said was a symmetrical design of the building. What we find here is that we're looking at this as an opportunity for zoning ZBA to look at the overlay district, the intention when it was created, and perhaps put some of these ideas into the new use or the extended use of this property. A couple of other points of view that we have are presently the property abuts the entire southern border of this property abuts Lake Quinsigamond directly. There is no drainage structures or any treatment of drainage from the site prior to it going directly into the lake. We find that you have an opportunity, and especially with the Conservation Commission has an opportunity to...
That does not need to go before conservation, so that's a dead issue. This project doesn't need to go to Concom.
Does it need to go to conservation when it's located within the buffer zone of the lake?
I've spoken with the conservation agent, and because there's no, the structure is the structure, it's not being changed or anything, so.
Well, again,
And also the conservation agent did submit a letter to the Board of Selectmen during that process, which I could provide to the board. Obviously, that would help your decision right now.
Right. So I would just move from that one?
yes, just that we would like to have you, we did submit a letter. We have also a list of other abutters who signed the letter. Hopefully you would enter that into the record.
We also have photographs of the property.
You give them to me, I gotta keep them.
You can keep 'em.
Okay.
Updated letter that shows the allocation of the Edgemere overlay.
Could you state your name for the record?
Fern Newsom.
Yep.
We also own a property at Lakeside Drive, which is directly across Lakeside Drive, is directly across from where the property is. This is the overlay district that Robert's referring to. It was not attached to the letter I gave. You know where it is.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't have one for everybody, but.
In summary, we would hope that the board would take a close look at the initial intent for the Edgemere Village Overlay District and to look at this property, perhaps be an opportunity to dress it up a little bit so that it doesn't look like a blight.
I have something to say.
Go ahead.
I noticed since we take over the property, was a big mess. I don't know who the person was there. I removed 3 tons of trash from the building itself. From 1989 until now, they have a kind of stuff on the top of the building, pack of box. We've been clean. Ariel High Landscape Company, they clean up, they remove all the leaves around all over the land. And the landscape company is going back there to take care, to look the place better. And I feel what they feel. I understand how they feel. There was a mess and nobody never will take care. But we just taking over, and I hope they understand. From now on, we will take care. There was big potholes in the asphalt. I really hire asphalt guy to be in there. It just matter of we move into the place looking much better.
Do you own the property?
No.
Okay.
I'm doing this all as own money because the people from the property she's our elder. She said they've been busy like the other time. If you want to take, if you don't want, it's fine. But we've been take care of the business like for our own. It's the first thing. Most of you guys know George Cadet. I worked for George Cadet for the last 19 years. And the first thing he told me, say, soon you go there, start to clean up because some of you need to see nice, clean, and organized. And I've been doing that for the last 3 weeks.
Anybody else wish to be heard on this? I guess my question is, do we continue? Yeah. I want to continue this one. Until we get the water collection, until we get specs, not really specs, but until that's.
Yeah, they weren't notified.
Yeah. I want to continue this to our next meeting.
I have just one question.
Yes.
Even if we have the car clean, all those details placed,
right?
Can we open the business?
Not yet. Not until it's permitted. But I want to make sure that you understand.
I did understand.
With the water collection.
Yes.
That you know what's needed to be in place.
I understand.
I'm not ready to make a decision tonight.
Yeah.
On that, so I want to continue until the next meeting.
Tuesday, May 31st.
Tuesday, May 31st. 6:30 p.m.
After Memorial Day.
Right. It's the Tuesday after Memorial Day. Can I get a motion?
I move that we continue this hearing to the next meeting, May 31st at 6:30 p.m.
Can I get
I have one more question.
Yes, sure.
Can at least we move the cut and leave it there without business open? Because the tenant for the other location, we got to leave it there by the April 30th.
What's that?
I would think that would.
That's a patio issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to discuss that with the building inspector?
With the building inspector?
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Okay, our 6:45 hearing, a little late, is continued from December 14th, 29th, January 25th, February 29th, March 21st, March 28th, and April 11th. 440 and 526 Hartford Turnpike, Smart Growth Design, LLC. Comprehensive permit to construct a
248
unit multifamily apartment community. Welcome. We're running a little bit late, sorry about that.
We're going to be early tonight.
I believe tonight, the only thing we have on.
We have our peer review for architect here,
yeah.
Eric from Davis Square Architects. He is going to give a presentation, and you have received some correspondence about the ongoing discussion on sewer. So that has also been tabled until we receive some information and then have our peer review take a look at it, Weston Sampson. And
is there a holdup on the sewer information? Is that?
When we had the last technical review meeting, we had kind of known that we were going to have another one because for sewer specifically, because the issues hadn't been resolved.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and schedule a meeting in the coming weeks on that. Obviously, we know that there's a coming timeline.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Fran Zaretti, the applicant, Smart Growth Design LLC. With me this evening is Peter Bartash from Q3 Architects to discuss architecture this evening. This is an update. We are still working on the sewer with the consultant and our consultants, same with the traffic. We will be back in detail with the summary of the traffic. Another iteration has come about through other discussions, so we're going to present that, and we're going to boil it down hopefully just to one, so there's not an A, B, and C that we discussed earlier. We're reaching that point now, and that's our objective. If we're successful, we'll be able to explain it all at the next meeting. Similarly, the sewer, there's still some give and take on what information we needed to complete the work so that the peer review could review it. So we're still working along those lines, and we're making progress, and we are working collaboratively. So we hope to get that resolved also at the next hearing. So this evening, Matt, I don't know if you want to make the presentation first with the peer review, and Peter can address it or whatever.
Sure. Eric, if you want to give your presentation. Sure. Do you have a PowerPoint or?
I don't.
Okay.
No, I have a draft of a memo that I'll review. Should I sit here or should I?
Your call.
Sit
wherever you're comfortable.
I'd rather sit if that's okay, if everybody can hear me. So I've looked at the plans and a whole lot of other documents that are available on the Shrewsbury website with the intent of of looking at the architectural issues. That is not traffic, not civil, but the architecture itself. The drawings are at a schematic phase, so they're undetailed, but there's quite a bit of information there to see how the project's being developed. I have a memo which I can probably submit tomorrow or the next day, and I'm just going to go through the points that I'm making in this memo. Generally, I'll go from, most of it goes from general to more specific, and I'll end up with some recommendations of things to look into further. So, many of the neighbors spoke up at the last meeting that I was at, and I took notes on what they were concerned with or had questions with. And I think they were good at identifying architectural issues, which anybody would be thinking about. You know, how the building sits on the site and how visible it is, how high it is, all those kind of things. So I did take cues from all those, and I hope to address a lot of the neighborhood's concern in the process here. I have visited the site, walked around the site, drove around the site, and taken photos of various parts of the site and the abutting properties. What's across Hartford Turnpike from the site is mostly one-story, mostly commercial or industrial, and I feel like it's not a very sensitive neighborhood, let's say. That what's going in at the point, at these two sites of the point, will be a great improvement to what you see along Hartford Turnpike. I understand, I think it's probably obvious that the bigger concern is what is the abutters that are behind both of the properties on Rocky Hill Road and two other roads that has immediate abutters. The scale of the point development is definitely a lot larger than the small-scale, single-family residential neighborhoods behind the property. That said, the effect of this construction will have on the neighborhood depends upon several factors. One, the relative level of the land on which it's built. This is rolling land. There's a pretty strong slope across both of these sites, and so the neighbors correctly were kind of wondering, are you building up on the highest point,
or is the kind of building nestled down? How's the cut and fill work? I'd say that I think not all the information is there for me to judge that, but I can see the intent is to not build on the very top, but to do some cutting, and I have some numbers that represent what I saw as the grades where the construction is happening. I'll get to in a second. Another issue is the relative height of the structure compared to the existing structures. If the existing structures are 2 to 2.5 story structures, and this is a 3-story structure, there's a size difference. There's definitely much bigger structures, and kind of can dwarf abutting houses if they're too close. The architectural qualities include massing, setbacks within the new buildings, and surface texture and color. All those things will affect how the new buildings are perceived and kind of how they work with the existing neighborhood. There's also other structures like garages, parking lots, dumpsters, fences, I think, all of which I took a look at because they're all going to be part of what you see as an abutter, or somebody coming down Rocky Hill Road.
Stony Hill.
Stony Hill, I'm sorry. Stony Hill Road. And lastly, there are buffering techniques that could be used, landscape fence, etc. And I think that while there is a landscape plan that I've been provided, I feel like it's not a final landscape plan. It shows the intent to develop landscapes in certain areas, but as far as how big the species of the plants and the size of the plants on day one when they're planted, it's not really shown yet. So these are all things that might be tracked as the project proceeds into development. So considering the grading of the site, the natural grades of the site of phase 1 right now range from, as far as I can see from the topo drawings, range from 494 feet to 418 feet. So there's this 80-foot roughly differential. The grading after the development is roughly the same, 490 feet to 418 feet. But the buildings themselves in phase 1 seem to sit at a level of 464 to 434 feet. So if I'm reading that properly, and that's the plan that is you're going with, if the building's sitting at 464 feet, rather than the very top of the lot, 494 feet, there's already kind of a nestling of the building onto the site, not putting it up on the highest point. So I think that's good, and helps it from looking too large and looming over the neighbors. Phase 2 site, the natural grades seem to go from about 524 feet to 488 feet. And the final post-construction grades would be 514 feet to 588 feet. So it seems like there's almost 10 feet that's being removed from the high point before the buildings go in. And I think that's part of a natural cut and fill that one would do to make good construction, surfaces for parking and construction. So that's what I've been able to see from the topo plans. I think to graphically address some of the concerns that the neighbors have, I think the site section, including the abutters property, would really be great. Because anybody then, even if you're not used to looking at drawings, could see, if Hartford Turnpike's here and the development's here, you can see where the roofs are, and then you can see the neighbors and where the roofs are. The topo plans that are included right now that I had access to did not have topo lines for the neighborhood, and therefore I couldn't really tell the relative heights of things, of the new buildings as they relate to the existing buildings. So that would be one of my recommendations, is a site section to clear that up. Regarding, so reviewing the architecture, I looked at
building heights. The maximum height of the buildings has been reduced from 4 stories. Well, there's one small section of building that was going to be 4 stories. It's reduced to 3 stories for all the buildings. The building height and bulk still exceeds all the homes around, still exceeds the homes around it. But the move from 4 stories to 3 stories is helpful. A building has been eliminated from both Phase 1 and Phase 2, is my understanding, if that last plan I got is the correct one. I think on Phase 1, you're removing the building which is closest to Stony Hill Road. And so for somebody entering the neighborhood and going down into the neighborhood where they live, it's really the building that was closest to the road and probably, the most intrusive that's being removed. So I think that that's a good move, and that's helpful in making the plan more comfortable for the neighborhood. On Phase 2, the building that is it's a building. It goes from 3 buildings to 2 buildings, but one of the buildings becomes a much larger building. I'm actually not convinced that makes it better. That it kind of makes it a more bulky building, and I'm interested in seeing those buildings on a landscape plan to see how they relate to the streets around them. It's kind of a V-shaped building, and the plan I got, the new plan I got, was superimposed over the old landscape plan, so I can't really tell what the intent is and why the building is sited as such. So that'd be a recommendation, is to see a development of that idea and see if those buildings are treated in a good way with regard to the site and the street frontage. At least 2 of the buildings on Phase 1 are stepped. That is, they step down, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 feet, they step down twice. And I think this is very beneficial. When you have a big building, to break the building down and step it a little bit does a couple things. One is it breaks up the sheer bulk of one large facade. And the second thing is it retains some of the natural grading on the site. One of the really nice things about this neighborhood is it's rolling. There's nothing flat about it. And so to come in, when a development comes in and just flattens everything, I usually think that that's, not the best approach. So stepping the building and keeping some grade change, I believe is a good approach to Phase 1. I'd say Phase 2 doesn't use that same approach. Phase 2 seems to be flattening the site. But there's a whole different idea. It's a different type of building at Phase 2. It's a double-loaded corridor building, so that the entries would not accommodate stepping in the same way. That's my understanding. Regarding the building bulk, as I said before, I'm not. I am interested in seeing more on Phase 2 to see if in a way, 3 smaller buildings can appear less bulky than 2 bigger buildings, even if it's going from 3 to 2, it's not necessarily. Like I said before, I'm not sure that it's if that's making it better or worse or more intrusive on the site. So I suggest that continue looking into that. If I counted right, the buildings are going from 100 to 94 at one site, and the number of dwelling units is going from 100 to 94 on one site, and from 180 to 156 on another site. And so I think that's done in a clever way on Phase 2 by adding a little bit of a wing to the building. And by losing one building and adding a little wing to the other 4 buildings, I think facades have been articulated by the architect using 3 or 4 different materials plus balconies. Given that the buildings are planned to be larger buildings, the use of 3 or 4 different facade materials in a nice way, stepping the building back and forth, and adding balconies, which kind of give you a shading effect, a shadow effect, all these help to make the building appear better. I think there'll also probably be a corresponding difference in color at the different textures. And all of those effects are what we use as architects to try to make a very big building look less big on its site. That's other things regarding the facade. The small wing that was added to each of the buildings in phase 1. When I look at the facades, there's a nice variety of facades with roof lines and balconies and step backs. However, the enlarged ends of the 4 buildings on site 1 really seem like a departure. They seem less well developed. They're more of a big rectangle without relief. And so my suggestion would be to take this same architectural idea of stepping and modulating the surface and bring it to those ends and develop that idea a little bit more. Because to me, those 4 facades stood out as the most blocky, let's say. And I think blockiness is, what you're trying to do is break down the blockiness on site. Green space and open space, I know is a concern of the neighborhood. Most of the neighbors, lots of the neighbors have, this woods or wetlands behind their homes, and probably really like that openness. The green space, I think on phase 2, the closest any building gets to a property line is quite a good distance. I don't know if it's a couple hundred feet, but it's set back quite far. There is a little bit of a structured wall, structured slope, riprap slope that's there. But I think once again, further development, to look at that in a site section and to show the landscaping as it's intended to be, will help for a neighbor to get comfortable with how that looks. But as I said, on phase 2, it seems like the buildings are set back quite a bit from the property line, and so that's just going to make it easier to kind of mask the effects of those new construction on the neighborhood. On phase 1, the buildings are somewhat closer to the lot lines and somewhat closer to the abutting neighboring structures. And therefore, that's a little bit more of a potential concern. And I'm not suggesting that you move those buildings farther away if they already are sited in such a way that fences and landscaping will kind of appease the look of them. But I'd like to see it in the site section and just to see what it's really going to feel like when it's done. As I said before, the landscape plans show a good number of plants, but I didn't see a list of species or size, caliper size of the trees. It seems kind of generic, and I think as it moves to being more specific, we'll get a better sense of how it's going to look, what's evergreen, what's deciduous, et cetera, and how it'll really look in the end. Even though I am not your traffic consultant, I pulled out of the intersection several times and found that it did take quite a bit of time. So it is a concern of mine when a development, is adding cars to that situation. But I think somebody else is dealing with that report and making suggestions, and so I'm happy to let them do that. So, getting a little bit more detailed, the entry layouts of the getting a little bit more detailed about the buildings. I think one thing that's good about phase one is that no great number of people will use any one entrance. An entrance serves maybe is it 6 or 12? 12 families, and there's a front and a back structure. So depending on where somebody parks, it doesn't have the feel. It's not a private entry, but it also isn't a big common entry where everybody's going to be funneling in on the site. So, given that all the houses in the neighborhood are single family with private entries, I think the more the new buildings have semi-private entries, let's call them, the better, because people will park near the entry that suits them best, and I think will be, that you won't see a whole lot of people accessing one entry at a time, and I think that's of course good. The other building is at the other side, at phase 2, there's more of a central courtyard almost, and I think everybody will have to probably want to come into that and then go up a stairway into their unit. And so it's a whole different idea of a building. It prevents you from stepping the building, I believe. Are you providing elevators at that building?
We've been planning for them, yeah.
Okay. So there are certain people for which the elevator will be a real good amenity. I think the development of that courtyard space, and the sidewalk, the route that a lot of people will be taking from parking to sidewalk to entry becomes important then. It seems like the courtyard is an internalized space, so it has more to do with the development than the neighborhood. That is, it's not right on the edge of the neighborhood. So I don't find it problematic, but the development of it, I think, will be a key to how successful it is. Architectural accessibility. I understand that, at least in the old plans, 20 of the 280 units would be Group 2 residential units, which means handicap accessible units. And that is 7%, according to the material I saw. I think many of the other units will have to be Group 1 units, that is adaptable or visitable. We have these kind of buzzwords that we use. Basically, because of the state of the architectural development of the drawings, I just didn't see that yet. I didn't see where these units are. I didn't see where there'd be a front step or not a front step or a ramp or all those things that I would look for in a more detailed review to be able to comment on the successfulness of the accessibility, the handicap accessibility of the buildings. But that's something that'll be developed in time. Shooting for 7%, I think, is good. So if that's the starting position, that's good to hear. As one sees these buildings and if one's living there or one's passing by on the road, the great number of balconies, I think there's a balcony for almost every upper floor unit. I think that's really good because it kind of enlivens the building, and I think it's good to have private outdoor space for the people that live there, and I think it could be a good attractive feature for the people that don't live there but are passing by or are looking at the building. So that seems like a positive. As far as green building design, now this wasn't, I wasn't asked to comment on this, but environmental sustainability of developments is important. I think it's both from a neighborhood perspective, you might want to know that the exterior materials are durable and are not going to look shabby, down the road a little, in 10 years from now. So, as a reviewer, I would look for what are those materials, how do they hold up, do they hold paint for a long time, kind of a number of detailed questions, but they really matter. If your neighbor's house is, peeling, or if a huge building is next to you and it's peeling badly, it's not a beneficial neighbor. So one green building issue is maintainability of the exterior. And while I saw pictures at elevations that I thought were going in a good direction, I couldn't tell what the materials were necessarily. Likewise, there's not really a building section developed to the point where I could see it, whether it's well insulated or. So I have no comment on that at this point. I understand that the air conditioning condensers are located out of view in a kind of a hollow concavity in the rooftop. And given that on a bigger building where you do see the roof and you see the equipment, it can be really awful. Finding a place within the kind of a, concealed by the pitched roof is really good, beneficial. It doesn't eat up site space with lots of pad-mounted compressors, and they're out of view, but they're still maintainable. So as the development continues, I think that's something to keep, a good rule to keep with, because 280 compressors whirring away, is not a good look. So that, as far as a sustainable site plan, we'd often look for planting of good shade trees along the south side of a parking lot. In this case, you do have some pretty big parking lots. And planting shade trees along the south side of the parking lot would reduce the heat island effect, kind of a local microclimate. It would make it just more comfortable for that blacktop to be shaded. And it would also help to screen the view and buffer the view for all the neighbors. I've said it a couple times, but the plantings the landscape plan is really important. I'm not a landscape architect, but most architects kind of, would look for that. It's good environmentally, and it's good for, it's better for the neighborhood to provide screening. Now, what I have is a list of, I would call them summary recommendations. And these aren't necessary. I don't want to say these are necessary. I'm not in a position to say they're necessary, but I'm suggesting to the board that these recommendations be kind of the way you look at the project going forward as it's developed, and would help to, I'd say, ensure that the end product is going to be good. So let me just run through these. Request that the development team submit a site section drawn perpendicular to Hartford Turnpike showing accurate levels of the site, proposed buildings, and the buildings adjacent on adjacent properties. It's the drawing that'll show you how big these buildings and how distant they feel. It'll also show you if there's any shading that's caused by these buildings. I don't believe that is an issue on this site, but here's the way to make it for sure. Second is request solar shading studies to show any shading that could affect a neighbor. But I think basically the neighbors are to the south or south, generally to the south of the new structures. So shouldn't be an issue. Request a building wall section drawn specifying all exterior siding, trim, and roofing materials. Sometimes we provide what's called, as architects, if I were designing the project, we provide what's called a material board, and actual pieces, lengths of the siding, the shingle, the trim, the roofing, any of those components which are going to end up there and kind of on big surfaces so that people can get comfortable with what they look like and make sure they have a nice quality. Likewise, probably not soon, but as the project gets further into as the project goes into construction, a color board, so that people can see that there's enough contrast in the colors and it's a pleasant color combination, because that can have a big effect. You know, a big building done right will be a more pleasant neighbor than a big building that looks blocky and doesn't have a nice surface treatment. Taking it, one more step on other projects, I've seen teams provide markers on the raw land that show where the buildings are going to go, and because it's tough to read drawings, or maybe it's tough to tell what 280 feet is, an orange stake at the corners of the buildings would be a recommendation to help everybody visualize it. And can you see that orange stake from your house? That becomes your question, right? No, a stake isn't a building, but it's a step closer to really seeing where they're going to be. A detailed site plan, landscape site plan, including fences and sidewalks and all those other things that maybe you don't think about till the end, but you see, transformer pads and dumpsters, all those things on a well-developed site plan. Most of those elements are listed on the site plan, but I know this changed the site plan and this changed the building plan, so I'd like to see, it'd be good to see how they develop. This kind of gets into a traffic type issue, but I don't know if there's any school bus that comes by this area, where they come, where they enter the site, even if there's, the buildings is it a age-restricted development or is it family development? So is a school bus going to enter the site? Where would it stop? Is it going to impede traffic at the wrong time of day? All those things. They become pretty important to people that are trying to get to work on time or, load their kids safely onto a school bus. So I just wonder whether that's been thought through. Buses need a big radius, and there's just a couple different concerns. So in addition to the recommendations, I would add suggesting design articulation of the 3-unit facade that I mentioned earlier, that feels like it's blocky. And like I mentioned before, the central circle, or the central courtyard at phase 2, just to see how that relates to everything around it. Those are architectural comments that I could offer, given the state of development of the drawings, and those are some recommendations to keep to look for further development as the project moves on.
Thank you.
Sure. So, again, Peter Bartesh with Cube 3 Studio, and thank you for your comments. Specifically, there were a couple that stood out that I think we can speak to now and just kind of go through it. And I think the discussion about the evolution of the site plan on Phase 2 is important, both in terms of understanding our thought process and helping to kind of understand some of the decisions that drove the location and size of the new buildings. If you remember the previous plan having the 3 buildings, as we had been massaging the buildings and trying to address some of the other comments that were coming up along the way, those buildings were getting closer and closer and closer. And so initially we had planned 3 buildings to try to provide opportunities for sight lines between the buildings, to allow light to pass through between those buildings, and to really make them feel separate and distinct. But as the plan had been evolving, we were noticing that they really did almost appear as one, to the extent that they would even be difficult to build in the configuration they had been shown. And so, in addition to removing the fourth floor, we actually took the opportunity to consolidate two of those buildings as a way of actually creating more open space in the site. And we recognized that we did create a larger building of the two while doing that. So we decided that that larger building should live closest to Route 20 and furthest from the abutting neighborhoods further down Stony Hill Road. But we then decided to take the actual configuration of that footprint and to turn the ends, both in terms of the L kind of end that we were mentioning, Eric was mentioning on the very side of the building, and then also keeping the angle at the very end of the building to try to break down its length as you're passing down Route 20 and looking at that building, moving at a faster rate of speed. So if you are one of the residents and you're turning onto Stony Hill Road and the building and project is on your right, now there's actually more space between those two buildings so that you can see between buildings 1 and buildings 2. So that feeling of openness and kind of allowing light and your view to pass through helps these feel like they're smaller and helps break down the overall mass of the project. That second building that is closer to the neighborhood side is relatively the same scale as the previous building that was in the same spot. So we've attempted to keep that as a crucial component of the site design for Phase 2 to try to maintain that smaller building and presence on the neighborhood side. So in general, those are kind of our thoughts as far as that development is concerned. I think with regard to the enlarged ends on Phase 1, we do have an opportunity based on the way those units are configured at the end of the building to take that center unit and step it out a few feet and just create a change in the roof line and address the comment about articulation that would be consistent with the design of the rest of the facades without adding too much complexity to the plan in a way that would make it difficult. So that's something we can address. As far as the materiality, so the project is currently designed as fiber cement, which has an extremely long life cycle. It's extremely durable. It also has a very consistent look over time. That's something that we specifically like to choose for our own selves as well. It limits our liability. We're not worried about building finishes breaking down or seeing problems kind of in a short period of time from after the project has been built. But also, as far as insulation and kind of the performance of the building, we'll be governed by obviously all of the energy codes that are enforced upon the project, and all of that level of development really occurs in the kind of design development phase of the project. So we're a little early to be getting into specifying specific types of insulation or ratings of insulation, but all of it will be code compliant. So that's a kind of that's non-negotiable from our standpoint. So we'll be meeting those standards at a minimum. As far as the shadow studies are concerned, we did actually look at those preliminarily when we were putting together the first package. And as Eric correctly identified, we noticed that there were no impacts to the abutter, so we chose not to include those within the package itself. We did, however, develop some site sections early on for some of the initial conversations. And I believe some of those site sections were actually shared with the abutters during some of the informal walkthroughs. And specifically, the goal of those site sections was to identify the relationship between the finished floor elevations of our project and the abutting residential structures, but also to describe the way the existing landscape and continuity of that landscape would buffer or mitigate the sight lines and view corridors between our project and the existing homes. So what may actually be helpful is to take those drawings and update them based on the latest iteration of the site plans and the building plans in order to kind of demonstrate how we've maintained the positive aspects of those plans and actually improved some of the other concerns that were identified earlier on in the process. And I mean, as far as the concerns and comments, I think in terms of your recommendations, Eric, those are the ones that really stood out to be kind of the most impactful and pragmatic, but we'll obviously look at the memo in full detail, and if there are any other areas we need to respond, we'll do so in kind.
Anyone in attendance have any questions regarding design, comments? Go for it. Name for the record, please.
Dale Martin, Success at Health. Eric said the word fences like 5 or 6 times. Every time we've asked about fences, it's just been kind of dismissed with we like to use thorny vegetation, and I would like clarification on fences in the plans.
you, me.
It's understood. We'll take that under review with the civil engineer.
A lot of times we don't like fences from our perspective is because they wear out and they start looking lousy after a while. So that's why we tend to push vegetation.
So the bigger point, I guess, is then the details about the vegetation and that, as Eric brought up. I think there are probably places where fences make sense.
Yep.
Probably places where they don't make sense. Those details are important.
Okay.
Understood.
Anybody else? State your name for the record, please.
David Curie, 108 Stony Hill Road. Eric had mentioned, as looking through the plans, there were some specifics that he could not find. Is he going to have a chance to be able to get those specifics to draw more conclusion to the project?
It depends whether I'm kept on for a future phase of the as it's developed. So that's up to you. I've commented on it right now just because I want it to be as complete and thorough as possible.
We are unsure at this time how that's going to go. State your name for the record, please.
Scott Haynes, 70 Stony Hill Road. To either of the architects, just to help put it into scale for me, because we always just talk in terms of the stories of the buildings, but the homes in our neighborhood probably run from, 1,300 square feet, maybe to 2,000. How many square feet are these buildings? I mean, let's put it in a scale that way to understand, because when you just say a large building, it's kind of deceiving.
Maybe a better way to talk about the size of the buildings would be the important dimensions. I think obviously they're going to be larger from a square footage standpoint because they're just generally a different type of building.
That's the number we're asking for.
Sure, and so that's all detail. I don't have the specific square footages offhand, but I can say regarding the height, which I think is one criteria that Eric was addressing and talking about. We have to consider that the floor-to-floor distance, which is the distance from, let's say the first floor to the second floor finish, in our project will be different than the floor-to-floor finishes in some of your homes, which will most likely be greater than what we'll be doing. So when we say 3 stories, we may not mean 3 stories that are equivalent to what you might have. Because I don't know the exact height of the floor-to-floor finish in every home, I'll stay specific to the project in saying that we're talking about 10-foot 8 floor-to-floor, which equates to roughly 9-foot clear ceiling height within each unit. And so when you look at the overall height, what's important to us is actually the height of where the roof begins before it starts to pitch back. And so that height it's roughly in the 32 to 35-foot range above the grade right at the edge of the site. So then you also have to take into consideration, as Eric was pointing out, where am I standing in relation to the building when I'm looking at it in order to be able to perceive that height? And so I think that the site sections will help illustrate what that means. Another way to look at the size of the building, and I think where the width comment might be coming, or the size comment may be coming from, is the width of the buildings themselves. So single-family homes, especially of that size, they'll typically have a dimension that's between 25 and 30 feet in one direction, and then anywhere from 50 to 70 feet in another, let's say. And that's where you end up with your rough footprint that gives you kind of your general square footage. And so in our case, the standard width for these buildings is 65 feet. And one of the things that Eric was keying on is at the end of the buildings in Phase 1, where we've widened them to be more than 65, we need to do a little bit more to help break down the apparent length so that you're perceiving the length of the building in chunks that are more relative to the size of some of the other facade lengths on a single-family home. So I think those are really the criteria that help to knit it together for us. But as part of the plan submission and part of the package, we've spelled out all of the square footages of the buildings and how that all fits forward. So we have that in detail for the board as well.
That was an elegant answer, but not an answer. I just don't know the square foot of the building relative to the square feet of our home, because that's a scale that we can all relate to.
As a rule of thumb, in multifamily, if the average gross square feet is probably 1,000 feet per unit, right?
Approximately.
So in a Phase 1 building, is that a 36 or 32 unit building?
They're 32 units.
So we're probably talking about 32,000 square feet on 3 floors, 10,000, 600 per floor.
So that's.
Very round.
And 8, 9, 10 times the size, and that's one building. That's all I'm getting at, is just put a scale to how much bigger.
It's probably not going to be 10 times the size because it's going to be over 3 stories and most of the houses are over 2. So I think on size it would be less of a factor. If you're just basing it that way. Yes?
Peter Riley, 19 Pheasantville. Again, going back to one of the comments that Eric brought up, again, from the standpoint of the neighborhood, what I'm trying and what I've been asking for a while, and I know that we've gone through a number of iterations of plans and things like that, but where do the buildings sit in relation to the existing houses? Is what I need to be able to visualize that to understand, what are we going to be looking at? And I've asked multiple times, and I've gotten a variety of smoke and mirrors, but if we could see something, there is a house in the neighborhood that is closest to phase 1, and there's a house in the neighborhood that's closest to phase 2. If I'm the property owner of those 2 houses, I want to know what is my view going to look like when this development is done, and I still don't have a good handle. I know at one point we were talking about the height of the buildings in feet versus the height of the houses, but then, as Eric pointed out, where the buildings sit in both of the phases. In phase 1, he even mentioned that it's 30 feet lower than the top part of phase 1. But my recollection, if I were the house that's closest to phase 1, I'm nowhere near the top of phase 1. I'm more towards the middle of phase 1 and trying to figure out what that elevation or what that sight line is would be very helpful. The second thing, I guess the same thing related is again, if we could go back and revisit what is the height in feet of the buildings that are currently on the plan versus the typical house in the neighborhood would be helpful to know what that is.
Thank you. Anybody else? State your name for the record, please.
Getting back to what Mr. Martin was saying about a privacy fence or barrier, it sounds like it's possible that some type of vegetation will be used. Who is responsible throughout time in caring for those? Because I know if I plant bushes in my yard and I don't water them and fertilize them, they die. So if I'm assuming that part of the purpose is for these to grow and create some type of barrier, is it, the neighbors, are they responsible?
No, it's going to be on their land. It's going to be on their land, so they're responsible for
Okay, and is
maintaining
there
it.
any sort of consequence if they all shrivel up and die and there are 100 plants throughout the woods that are not creating a barrier?
That's a good question.
Well, there is, because the comprehensive permit will be based upon the plans, which would include the landscaping plan. There would be a condition that requires that landscaping to be provided. So if they allow the landscaping to go away, essentially to wither and die, they're going to be out of compliance with their plan, and it's essentially a zoning violation.
Okay, and does the same thing go for if there's a fence? And obviously, Mr. Rosen mentioned that after a while there's wear and tear. Is somebody responsible for maintaining over time a fence should that go up?
Same thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And Peter Riley, 19 Pheasant Hill. Question, Mr. Rosen, to you and the board, but it sounds like the ZBA is going to rule on this development based on the plans that are presented. But what we're hearing tonight is the architectural plans are not in a state where even the town's peer reviewer
Right, and
And so, help me, my question is, how do you rule, and how do we have teeth in plans that traffic's not done, sewer's not done, water's not done, architecture is not done. Water's done?
water is effectively done, yeah.
Okay. Well, any number of these other, and Eric even brought up the issue with the school bus going into the neighborhood. How is that going to work? And I know that that's probably related to traffic. But
I was going to say that's going to depend on traffic, whether we're going right in, right out, left in versus access to Stony
But none of these plans appear to be even close to be done because our town's peer reviewer doesn't even have the slightest bit of information to do what he needs to do.
So that's one of the quirks of Chapter 40B, is that the applicant is only required to submit preliminary plans. And the plans that are in front of this board are actually in a much more detailed state than you would normally see on a 40B application, because it's been a very lengthy review process. There's been a lot more information submitted, but understood that there is still a lot more information that needs to be submitted as part of the final plans. So the way the process works is the board, if it is going to approve this project, would issue a decision that requires the submittal of final plans. And those final plans have to put the teeth into the details, and they have to comply with the conditions that are imposed as part of the written decision. And at that point, the board reviews those final plans, and no building permit is allowed to issue until the board signs off on those plans. And it could be that the board is going to look at it and say, there are things that we didn't really have the opportunity to fully vet during the hearing process, like some of these architectural issues. Landscaping, if there is additional landscaping information, such as some of these more fine details in terms of the species types and sizes and that sort of thing, the board can say, we want to peer review that issue as part of our review of the final plans to make sure that what we're getting is acceptable and is consistent with what we had presumed we were getting as part of this decision.
Good enough? State your name for the record, please.
All right, Steve Danielson. So you mentioned the final plan. So when do these final plans have to be submitted? Is it
Post-permit. It's post-permit, but before they go to get a building permit.
Okay.
So before they can do any work on the site, they're going to have the final plan signed off by this board. This board will typically have input from other departments, from the building departments, and to the extent necessary, peer review.
That's past the last.
After the comprehensive permit is issued.
It'd also be after the decision has been.
Right.
Correct. So there's going to be a decision issued that is not going to just accept the plans as submitted. They're going to say, all right, the board can approve this project if you do this, if you do that, if you do that, and it'll be part of a list of conditions, and they are going to be required in their final plans to make those plans conform to that list of conditions.
And I guess the board only listens to the final plans. It's not under another public.
It's not, well, it would be in a public meeting, but it is not a noticed public hearing. There are no appeal rights associated with it. It's simply ministerial to say the applicant's going to come back with the final plans, and the board's going to look at it, with the input of their consultants to say, these comply with our decision. These are consistent with what was originally approved, plus what we told you you had to make in terms of changes.
And is there any public comment at that time? I guess we could just listen to it. But...
You would basically just listen to it, except for to the extent if there is something that appears to be non-compliant. Certainly, a member of the public could point that out to the board to say, all right, the board has a condition that says you have to put a fence along this section. They've got final plans that don't show a fence. What's the story?
Just one other final comment. I guess, I know this isn't for your board, but the Conservation Commission, when does that get filed? After 180 days?
Well, that's up to the applicant.
Okay, but it could be filed after.
The boards are not dependent on each other.
But the applicant can't begin construction until he's got his order of conditions from the Conservation Commission.
Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back. State your name for the record, please.
Mr. Reyes, 5 Pleasantville Drive. So, the way I understand it, you're going to rule either yes with conditions, or no.
Correct.
And my understanding is if you rule no, the applicant is going to, I guess, go to the state or whatever party. What if you rule yes with conditions, and the applicant feels that the conditions are too onerous?
Then
It's the same process.
Same process, they can appeal.
And appeal with the state or?
The Housing Appeals Committee, which is a state agency, part of a state agency.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Warden?
What is the density of these apartments as opposed to if we were doing a 40A?
In terms of units per acre or square land area, FAR?
Yes.
I'm not sure. We haven't looked at what it would be as a
We
40A.
can get the density calculations. We're really in the process. We don't have them with us tonight. But we did cut it back substantially, and it's well within the 40B standards of the Avalon property. Matter of fact, I think it's even less. It's certainly less than the Spags property. Substantially less. So we've addressed that in detail. We cut it back to
Spags is not
limits that
40B though.
I think it was 12, 11, something like that.
Anybody else? Anyone up here?
Nope.
You all good? Okay. Next meeting, we will have sewer?
We hope to have
Doing
sewer
sewers,
and
yeah.
traffic.
Okay.
That's our goal.
Anything else?
Well, we discussed, so hypothetically, the 31st of May is the day that this board would then close the hearing.
Right.
Because of the 180-day deadline. So we were talking about
May 5th?
May 9th,
May 9th?
if possible, to try and address some sewer and traffic and architecture as much as we can before that May 31st hearing.
Okay.
If that works.
Yeah, what we'd like to do is as soon as the information is compiled, we'd like to have another work session
Yeah.
in town. And if we can get through those two work sessions, then when we come to this meeting, we'll probably be well prepared.
Yeah. And so, planning and economic development is going to work on setting up the sewer meeting.
If we could do, I would think if we could do the work session next week, that gives us this week to get all the information transformed from one consultant to the other, do the work, do the presentations in the work session, and then come back with the results to this board. That would be
Right.
the goal.
Okay. And May 9th works for you?
Yes.
At 7 p.m.?
Okay.
Yes.
There's nothing else?
Yeah.
It's just 40B? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else, before we continue to the next meeting, have anything on design? Okay. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue this hearing to May 9th at 7 o'clock.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, and if you can carry your conversations down the hall,
Okay.
we still have a meeting to conduct. Thank you, Lisa.
Paul's still here. It's good.
Yes, that's why I knew he was coming.
We eat 'em.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Where's my stuff from the last hearing?
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. So let's go in order. Oh, got quiet. 56 Boston Turnpike, we continued until our next...
Hartford Turnpike.
What's that?
Hartford.
Hartford. No, it says here Boston. Hartford.
Hartford Turnpike. Yep. It's okay. We're not voting on it.
Hartford. Hartford Turnpike, we continued to our next meeting. No? Any reason why you didn't want to continue that one?
I was ready to vote.
Okay. I was close, but I just didn't feel like, I don't know if the applicant understood what they needed.
I think he does.
Okay.
I think he understands a lot more
Well,
than
okay.
me. But I have an unfair advantage of having known him for an awful lot of
Okay.
years
Okay.
while he worked for George Cadet.
Okay.
Yeah, because those could be expensive, those
That's already
systems,
been
so.
done. We already voted on it. So next is Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, 240 Maple Avenue, which is primarily house cleaning on removing the condition, which we supposedly were not able to put in on the first place, and recognizing that the existing parking is less detrimental, yeah, thank you, than what is currently there. I still haven't fully recovered from the last 4 months. Anything to discuss?
I don't think so.
I'm okay with
I just wanted to add that the condition that was put in is technically not allowed under Chapter 48, so you can't limit a variance to the ownership.
Okay, I was always taught you could for use, but I stand corrected.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we amend our decision from January 25th to remove that condition regarding ownership and to acknowledge the lesser impact of the parking.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next.
But that also had a special permit involved with it.
There's two. We
Yeah,
voted on
okay.
both,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Making sure.
3 variances to the town of Shrewsbury on the 115 rear Colonial Drive. I'm kind of against this one. I'll put it out there. I don't know where anyone else is.
I don't see it as detrimental. I don't see it as a derogation. I think the state has the onus of doing something that I think is wrong. And I think the 2 houses would pay their own way. And I'm in favor of it.
I'm also in favor of it.
Okay.
And my reasoning is that, this easement that they wrote way back when, it goes with the property with the sale.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but I just felt like the easement doesn't necessarily guarantee them whatever.
Doesn't make the
$2,100.
land buildable.
Right, it doesn't give them a 2,100 square foot, 2,100 foot driveway. It doesn't give them the right to a second property.
It gave them the ability to construct. So, and that was a general term, so,
Yeah.
So to me, he's looking to construct it
Yeah.
to be able to use his property, so I'm okay with it.
Okay, you?
I see it as you see it.
Okay, so can I get a motion?
I would like to grant the 3 variances.
Okay, is that the motion?
Yes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, and that would presumably for all 3?
That was the motion.
Yes.
Yep.
That way I only have 2 voting sheets, but one of them covers 2. Okay, next, the dance studio.
Thank you.
Use variance, time certain, June 30? She said she only needs it till, I guess we should give some wiggle room there.
I believe the application actually asked for a year, but let me get.
I don't want to do it a year.
I thought it was just a short period of time.
She said that she only needed it till June, that she wants to move in June.
Yeah, I mean, give her whatever, how many months, but
Says
wouldn't give her a year.
temporarily conduct business for 1 year as a dance studio while we wait for our new location to become available.
I don't know. She represented that she's moving out in June.
I don't have a problem with making it 6 months.
Yeah, that's where I was
That's
going.
fine.
6 months. Can I get a motion?
I would move to grant the extension of the.
It's a new.
It's new.
I believe.
Yeah, it's new because the other one expired. Yeah.
Variance for 6 months regarding. Where are we? Yeah.
The
910
dance-
Boston
yeah,
Turnpike.
Right.
The dance studio.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is that coming back to me?
Matthew, aye.
Okay, just making sure. I didn't hear you.
Okay, next is 11 George Street, which I don't believe needs any discussion at all. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed?
Neighborhood standards there are real strange.
Next is Appaloosa Drive, construct a deck 10 feet from the side property line in the rural B district.
I would like to include
Screening.
and steps.
Can we condition steps?
I think they show steps on the.
Plan?
Sorry. No, sorry, we're on twice in Appaloosa.
Well, I'd like to see the steps go down into the backyard.
I think that's what this.
The plan, I think, shows
The
that.
plan shows it.
I think that's what those
Okay,
are.
right,
Yeah.
So as per the
As
plan.
per the plan.
Per the
Yeah.
plan. What type of screening?
And you'd have to probably say at what location and who has to upkeep it.
It's
and-
kind of,
What's that?
Did anyone complain about screening?
Yeah, two people, yeah. Two abutters.
People can.
No, that was-
No, they.
No, was that?
That was for Jamie Lane.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was the next
I
one.
got my
Appaloosa was just the extension of the deck.
oh, correct. Okay, I got my deck and my sunrooms mixed up.
And they said it would be up to 18 feet to the property line. So it's
yeah, this really isn't this
No.
is a deck as opposed to a
Right, yeah.
high structure.
Right.
Okay,
And
All
there's
good as is.
a hardship there due to topography.
Right.
Topography.
correct. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the variance
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
of 27 Appaloosa Drive.
The next one's the privacy hedge.
I think he had a problem she had a problem that she didn't even realize. The other two people are up on top of her, looking down, and now they're asking for screening. I think screening is a good idea, but I think you're not getting the best of the deal.
If they screen,
Yeah,
then they won't see anything.
Right,
that's right.
right.
Well, they're up higher,
Right.
so
Which one are we on?
This is 12 Jamie
12
Lane.
Jamie Lane,
That's the
the sunroom.
The sunroom, yeah.
Okay, so,
it's a corner of the sunroom that's,
right. It's, they could square it off, and I don't have an issue with this. You know.
neither do I.
You do? No. Oh, okay. No, I don't. Okay. Can I get a motion?
I'd like to approve the variance for Jamie.
And can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Last but not least, 151 to 155 Main Street. Construct a new medical building 77 feet from the rear property line, about 100.
I think it's going to be a nice addition to the
Absolutely.
town.
I think it's going to be a wonderful addition.
Yeah.
They did say they were asking for 75
Right, 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, 25 feet. is-
because it's a 100-foot requirement, and they're
Right.
going to be.
Yeah.
And I don't think those people, well, the fellow, is even going to see it.
No, and I think
No,
it's.
it's one
I don't think so either.
It's also much less intrusive than what a
Yeah.
hotel would have been.
It's a 12-hour
With a
day.
restaurant. Yeah.
It's not 24 hours.
Good use.
I think the traffic is going to be the hardest part.
That being said, can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
And that is still in front of the planning board, so.
What's that?
That is still in front of the planning
Yeah.
board, yeah.
56 Hartford Turnpike has been continued. 11 George Street has been unanimously approved.
Thank you.
Colonial Drive has been denied, 3-2. Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, both the special permit and the variance have been approved unanimously. 910 Boston Turnpike, use variance, conditioned by 6 months, has been approved unanimously. 27 Appaloosa Drive has also been approved unanimously. And 12 Jamie Lane, sunroom has been unanimously approved. Yes. And ready for one. Healthcare Enterprises LLC has been unanimously approved. Next would be new business. 5 Edgemere Boulevard. What was?
This was, so you approved a variance several months ago, and then they came back, and then you asking for additional relief, and you turned it down, so they're asking to withdraw that application.
I don't have a problem.
What?
I just don't get it.
A decision hasn't been written because I knew this withdrawal was coming in, so it's still they can request to withdraw.
Yeah, okay.
Move
without
withdrawal.
prejudice, I guess. Is the
Move that we allow withdrawal.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay.
There's no vote limit on that, right?
What's that?
No sort of.
No,
It's just simple majority?
I mean a majority, yeah.
Okay.
It's not a, no, it's not a variance.
Okay.
So, yeah. It's
I think is there a vote sheet?
I don't think it really needs it.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's really it. Master plan?
Oh, well, so the other two pieces?
Yes.
Two other.
Yeah, it's kind of off the agenda.
I can, if you want.
Well, I was going to.
Sure.
It's basically the building inspector wanted us to have a meeting on what our interpretation was. And basically, my conversation with her was, my interpretation was, is that we approved the dance studio. That anything else would need to come back to the board for further.
Is it Maronis Park?
Special permit, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I would expect, in discussion with the building inspector, that she said that she would be addressing because the question was the gym, or what is being classified as a gym, that she would be addressing it with you outside of this board.
She told us to report for this board.
Oh.
She highly recommended us to come in and give our side of the story.
What's that? No, feel free, but my interpretation, my recollection, my memory of the hearing is that we approved the dance studio. We did not allow you to do anything else. A gym is not a dance studio. So if you want to do something else, you need to come back before this board and request a special permit for that.
She called me this morning.
Yeah.
And the concern is that you're using the bottom entrance as the main entrance now. And that one of the rooms is a storeroom, or listed as a storeroom. And she was concerned about that.
Okay, I could bring you the original plans.
Yeah, we can't do, this is not a public hearing. Excuse me, the thing is, it's not really a public hearing. We can't.
So why don't you bring them to her?
You need to bring those to Patty Machine and discuss that with her.
Because I think the concern is that you're now using that bottom as a main entrance.
It is not the main entrance. The main entrance
Is upstairs.
right there. That's a secondary.
That's what you say. But is that how it shows?
It was always an exit and an entrance when the original building was built. And when we used to use that music room for parties, smaller parties like 50, 60, we used it. But then for the last 5 or 8 years, we haven't used that room.
No, but you told us, or you told the building inspector, that it was a storeroom.
You didn't tell her that. I mean, somebody, one of the members drew up a small plan for storage, but it's not actually storage.
Well, I think what you got to do is straighten it out with her, and then bring it back to us as new business.
If you're going to do a gym, you need to.
That's not what we did.
You can't be here for that. That was not on the agenda.
Can I just take a second here?
Yeah.
I think we're all on the same page. My name is Ben Klimas. I'm a senior member at the club here and all the rest. You folks, you're absolutely correct. You approved a dance studio for the whole first floor. That included a back music room and a front, our own function hall for the front. So that's the whole, we approved the whole first floor is that. We lost a tenant a year ago or so like that. She had rented the whole place. Well, after she she left, we couldn't find someone to take the whole place. One of her ex-ballet teachers took the music room as a ballet studio for the back end of the room, and this young lady took on the front part of the room for a dance studio. So it's still a dance studio. We don't have any gym equipment, we don't have showers, we don't have any kind of equipment. I think the most that they saw was what, 1 pound weights that you girls, 2 pound weights they used to limber up with when they do dance instruction. So I don't know what the issue
So it's not a fitness.
So there's no
Not a gym.
There's no treadmills, there's no gyms, there's no showers, there's nothing.
This isn't. I think this is.
It's frustrating.
It's for. It's for Patty.
Yeah,
Gotta get
I
her
would.
comfortable.
It's frustrating.
I'm sorry, but
Well,
yeah,
She gave it to us as new business, so I
yeah, but then it
assume
came. Yeah,
that she wants us to make a decision.
no,
Well, there's no decision
there's no
to make.
decision to make.
You already.
Okay.
Not
The
noticed.
question is what was our intent? Our intent was it was a dance studio.
Okay,
Yeah, and
so
then-
it's a dance
Captain
studio.
Rose.
It's a dance studio.
There's no equipment at all. There's 2 pounds weight, Cindy. Cindy's the one that's running. That's we brought Cindy along. She's running the dance studio. in the front.
Cindy, you don't look like you could lift 2 pounds. I know I can't.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so I would have a conversation. Call Patty tomorrow, and have a conversation.
Get
with
her comfortable.
yeah, because
Well,
this is
I
not
would
the.
like to ask, do we know how the term gym came about?
It was just in communication that
Well,
it was triggered by.
Somebody told her that.
It was the way that Patty, the building inspector, interpreted what she saw during an annual inspection.
what she saw. So the
But
2 pound weight
She is the
turned
zoning
it into a gym.
enforcement officer. She interprets the bylaw. I think it's a matter for her and not for this board to make any sort of call on.
Yeah. Okay.
We just
Right,
made
so have a conversation. Sorry that you guys.
we made our thoughts
Yeah.
known.
Yeah.
So now,
Okay.
sorry to keep you so late.
Buffalo
yeah.
Wild Wings.
No, that's again.
All
There's
done.
nothing really to discuss
Okay.
What?
on this one. What's that?
What?
Because
Buffalo Wild
it's a Patty issue.
Okay.
We issued our decision.
Yeah, the dance studio.
No, I'm even talking about Buffalo Wild Wings, the next one. We issued our decision on what it had to be and what was in the plans as presented.
The only question she told me she had was they were going to try to put heat in.
Right.
And she told them no.
Right, which is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the hours, what are the months for the outside?
There was nothing in the
There was
decision.
nothing in the decision.
Yeah.
What they said was it was going to be seasonal based on.
That's what I don't understand.
so if
What
you're-
is seasonable? April, May, June?
Well, to me, seasonal is you're not putting in heating or air conditioning to make it seasonal.
And they specifically said they weren't going to put heat in during.
And they've now said they're not.
Well, we're not even talking about a space that's enclosed, right?
No, it's a deck.
It's outdoors, right? Yeah.
Right, it's not enclosed.
They said.
Yeah.
I think they're doing the right thing. But I think it's a tough thing
not
to
as
regulate who's going in.
Right, and not as presented.
I mean, I don't understand why the heat's an issue. If they put
Because
out,
it was presented that they weren't going to have it.
They're trying to extend
They're
their.
trying to extend the period that they said to us. They
But don't
told
we
us
have
it was
one
gonna be
other, like-
seasonal, and they were going to reduce the inside seats based on what was going to be outside.
The main issue is
no,
that
I don't believe they said that.
Yeah, they did say that.
I
They
believe
said-
they were not.
Matthew, you're going to have to talk up.
Well, which to me is the same thing.
the main issue is that in the way that we've interpreted it in the past for other developments, is seasonal outdoor seating doesn't require extra parking. So if they're
Or
extending
an extra
this,
bathroom.
Right.
or exactly, so if they're extending the seasonal use, then they have a parking variance on file, so that could impact it. So I think the hope was, at least Patty, or the building inspector's hope was to try and get some sort of direction. But like I said, we had a conversation today, and she intends to address the heating issue
Then I'm good
as
with
part
that
of the
as-
building permit.
Right,
Well,
okay.
look, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Maybe, but go ahead. Start, and I'll let you
I mean,
know.
May, that's part of the season, potentially, May, June, right? And you got a chilly night, and you want
Then
to
no.
de-chill the atmosphere?
If people want to go out there and sit out there in the cold, more power to them.
Bundle up.
But
Well, they
but,
can put those
they
portable
represented
Well, I
to
think
us.
what-
They represented to us
I
that there was
think
not going to
what
be heat.
Patty's trying to do,
I don't recall
and what
that.
you're trying to stop her from doing, she's trying to be business friendly.
Right.
Okay? 3 of you aren't.
Well, it's not that I'm not being business friendly, it's just that when someone represents something to this board, I want them to do what they say they're going to do.
I wish I was perfect.
Well, you know what, then come back and come back to the board again. That's a poor excuse, Mel.
Did we say you cannot heat this space?
Yeah.
We did.
No, they said
They actually stated.
They stated that
They
it would
stated
not be,
they
and
weren't
it said
going
it
to.
would be as a seasonal use, and that was part of the decision.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So then they need to come back.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, what
I don't
Patty
have a
told me
problem
was
with them heating.
she would like to be business
Yeah.
friendly.
Can I get a motion?
Wait, we still need
To do what?
I still need to give you a quick update on
Okay.
master plan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So last Thursday, Kristen and I Town Manager Kristen gave a presentation to the men's group at the across the street. Senior Center. Sorry, I was
They were
blanking.
very impressed.
And that went really well, and there were lots of good questions. And now our next, I guess, milestone will be to give a presentation under Article 1 to annual town meeting in May.
Yep.
What's the date on that?
It's May 16th, I believe, but don't quote me on that. It's the Monday. Yeah, it would be the 16th. It's the Monday after our next CBA meeting.
That's good.
That's it.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?